Hi, everyone. This is Michelle with Connor's Clinic, and I am interviewing one of my patients that I've been working with or had the pleasure and blessing of working with for the last couple of years now. Her name is Christina Kranz. I recently interviewed Christina about who she is and her experience with our clinic. So if you're wanting to find out more about her and her personal journey, you can find that video also on our blog. But in this particular section, I wanted to talk to her about her experience with the Mexico cancer clinics. We've had a number of patients who have either gone to Mexico to go to the alternative clinics there first and then come back and have worked with us, or vice versa. They've come to us first and then are wanting to go to Mexico. Well, Christina, it was the latter. She came and worked with us, and after about a year and 9 months with us, she decided to head down to Mexico for a few weeks. So thank you so much for being with me on this interview, Christina. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to sharing.
Definitely. So I'm curious, after being with us for well over a year and a half, you decided to go down to the Immunity Therapy Center, if I'm saying that correctly, in Mexico. Yes. For a couple of weeks. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience there? And well, actually, first tell me the reason why you chose to go, and you can feel free to give some backstory if you need to.
Sure. So I'd been working with Connor's Clinic for, a year and a half and had wonderful healing results on multiple levels. And this past September, October, I had some regrowth of the original tumor and kind of was a little bit disillusioned, like, the last year and a half didn't get to the root of the issue, and kind of was being pressured by conventional oncology to just do a hysterectomy for my endometrial cancer. And I had to give that some serious consideration, and at the same time kind of felt like I hadn't actually exhausted the resources of alternative treatments. And that's really where my heart was. It was really where I felt most hopeful, and hope is very healing. So I kind of took that as a clue that I needed to keep exploring other alternative options. And that's when I started interviewing and perusing sites of different clinics that were more intensive. I checked out a couple that were in the States, and then I checked out a couple that were in Mexico. And probably the thing that actually led me to the Immunity Therapy Center was a family's testimony of their family member going to this clinic, and they said, call us and you can ask us any question you want. And I called, and they answered the phone and answered all of my questions in a very unbiased way, because they were the ones there, not the ones earning any money or rewards from being an advocate for this clinic. And that helped me to just ask and ask and ask. And then they were able to set up a free phone consult with one of the doctors at the center same day, and I was able to ask him all of my medical questions. So those were some things that just helped me really decide that I first wanted to pursue another branch of alternative treatment for my cancer care, and also why I needed it now after working with you all for a year and a half, because something had changed in my body and I just needed something more intensive. And I kind of realized I needed either intensive surgical care conventionally, or I needed intensive alternative care.
Yeah. So when you were speaking with the doctor and asking him your medical questions, is there any part of that conversation that you'd be willing to share of what were the questions that you asked him that helped to build that relationship for you so that you felt comfortable taking that next step?
Sure. I think first was that he listened. So I just told him my history, and I said, I have done alternative care from the beginning of my diagnosis, and here's what I have done. Here are the lifestyle changes I have done. Here's the diet I have followed. Here I've been using the Rife machine from the beginning. do you have something more to offer than what I've already been doing? And he said he did. He had a more intensive program. He had IV therapies. And then I said, okay, one of my biggest risks is that sometimes I bleed very heavily from the tumor regrowth. And I said, I don't want to be in a place where I'm going to be stressed and anxious about needing emergency care. I said, what do you have to offer if I'm in Tijuana, Mexico? And then he said, we have an emergency room doctor. We have a doctor 24/7. We have our own little hospital. We have an oncologist. We have a surgeon. We have an internist, besides the team that I'm on, which is here at the center. And he said, if you had an emergency, we would take care of you. And that was significant for me. I needed to know that I would be safe there, and I needed to know the kind of therapies he had in addition to what I was already doing. And that gave me a lot of confidence. And he said, we have 20 years of experience and we have a protocol for endometrial cancer. And that meant a lot to me. They weren't experimenting with me.
Oh, I bet that meant so much. So can you walk me through your experience? You were there for 3 weeks, am I correct?
I ended up staying an additional week. So I was there for a total of 4 weeks. From being interested to being discharged home, they really walked me through the process. So I had a patient advocate, and she helped to answer a lot of my questions, logistical questions about making my trip to Tijuana. I was responsible for my own plane tickets, but then I gave them my flight numbers and they come pick me up at the San Diego airport and take me across. Doesn't matter if it's a Saturday, a weekday, midnight, 6 in the morning, noon. They have a driver that comes and takes me across the border. That's included in the package of the program fees. And then I was housed in a apartment. That fee is not included in the program fee, but the apartments are associated and owned by the center. So I was housed there, and then I could bring a family member with me, and they chauffeured us back and forth from the apartment to the center. So my first day was, a lot of paperwork and giving consents and having like emergency contact info, and then they did labs right away, and they do labs weekly. They want to see how my liver is functioning and my kidneys functioning, and if I'm anemic at all, what my white blood cells are doing, things of that nature. So for every patient that might be a little bit different, but those were my panels, and they happened weekly. So my first day was just like a lot of foundational admission kind of things. And there is a model that I have 3 doctors. I have Dr. Batista, who's the medical director who oversees my care, and then the assistant medical director who also oversees my care, and I saw him twice a week. And then I had my primary who saw me every single day, and my primary sat down with me the first day and just listened to my story, my history, and my alternative care experience up to that point, and the emergencies I'd had, and the suggestions of my oncologist at home. And he just took notes and notes and notes and really got to know me well. I felt very heard being there. And then I started in on treatments the very same day. And treatments include IV therapies. They're different every week, but things like multivitamins, seleninomycin, which attacks the stem cells of cancer, high doses of vitamin C, DMSO, B17. They did some hydrogen peroxide and sodium bicarbonate for pH and oxygenation, and some chelation. And so they kind of tailor those week by week based on my labs, how I'm responding, how I'm detoxing. They use the Rife, the Beamer, PEMF mat, infrared therapy, local hyperthermia, whole body hyperthermia, some ultraviolet light blood cleansing. They took my blood and then they processed it to become stem cell therapy. And then they did some cancer antibody therapies throughout the week, and a viral vector vaccination, which basically my cancer cells like, and then the virus is in the cancer cells and my immune system can go, oh, now that looks foreign, let's take care of it, instead of how cancer cells have this way of hiding out and the immune system doesn't even realize that they're there. So they're using like multiple approaches. And every day I basically spent 6 hours in the center getting treatments. And I had a protocol that was meant for me and that was tailored based on my labs and based on my current diagnosis. And then they also used some imaging to monitor my progress. They have a little restaurant that's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, peanut-free, and uses high-quality meats, vegetables, grains, fruits, and they would serve me 2 meals a day while I was there. So it was a very comfortable experience. Yes, it was new and intensive, but it was a place that I was really well cared for.
Yeah. How did your body feel throughout this process? Did you end up having any major detox reactions? Were you able to tolerate the therapies well? How did you feel, being that, granted, we have some patients, like I said, who've gone there first and then come to us. You've already been on a fairly intensive alternative regimen for the last year and a half. What was it like for you to go down there and experience 6 hours every single day of intensive therapy?
I did quite well. There were some days I felt tired, like the kind of tired you might feel if you're getting over a head cold. My body just was working, but I didn't have any other adverse reactions, really. Probably that was due to a lot of detoxing work I had done with Connor's Clinic and the regimen I'd been on for the year and a half. I adjusted well to all of their treatments and to the detoxing. Sometimes, like the whole body hyperthermia took a lot of energy because it raised my core body temperature and I'd be hot and sweaty. And, it was an intense half hour of being hot and sweaty. So sometimes afterwards I would feel particularly tired. But I kind of learned that as long as I ate and had drunk like a quart of water before I went in, I was good.
Yeah.
Not everyone felt as well as I did. Some of them maybe were more tired, also came more sick than I did. And they do some low-dose chemotherapy connected with the DMSO so that it targets the cancer cells. And there were a lot of patients that, even though this is low-dose chemotherapy, still felt off, no appetite, nauseous, constipated, tired 2 to 4 days after chemo happened. And chemo wasn't part of my treatment there, so I did not experience that part of it.
Yeah, you were fortunate then, even though that was so intensive for you.
Mm-hmm.
Very fortunate to have not crashed.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, since you started with us first and then went to the Mexico clinic, if you had to go back to the beginning and do that all over again, would you still start with Connor's Clinic first and then go there, or would you ever have considered reversing the two?
One of the reasons that I really appreciated Connor's Clinic was that I had a very significant hemorrhage from my endometrial tumor, and I was not able to travel because the risk of another hemorrhage was present for about 3 months after I was initially diagnosed and the tumor was slowly shrinking. So traveling wasn't an option for me, and that you could come to my house in the home program and get me started with the Rife and diet and supplement and lifestyle changes was immense, because I don't know of another program that offers that without me traveling to the clinic. So for myself, I really didn't even consider Mexico when I was first diagnosed. I sometimes think I should have or could have gone to Mexico once I was more stable, and especially once there were no measurable tumors, to just have in that really strong place that I was totally suppressing any tumor growth at that point. I sometimes wonder, well, what if I had gone then to really like kick it and then come back and done long-term maintenance with Connor's Clinic? That may have been very strategic. Of course, I didn't know. I just thought I'm on this uphill trajectory and everything's good, not knowing that a year and a half later I'd have regrowth at the original tumor site. So hindsight is 2020. I don't have a regret that I started with Connor's Clinic at all. Could I have gone to Mexico earlier in a more intensive, let's take care of this completely and really boost my immune system? Yeah, but at the moment I don't think I knew I needed it.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything prior to going to the Mexico clinic that you wish you would have known or been aware of before you got there?
Yes, I wish that I knew that a lot of patients stay longer than the 3-week treatment time. They talk about it being a 3-week treatment time, and I had asked a few questions and knew that some people stayed longer, but after being there, I know that many people stay longer. It does depend on the stage of your cancer when you go. It depends on your age. It depends on how strong or weak your immune system is. Have you been through lots of chemo and radiation and now you're coming to their clinic? So I kind of just thought that 3 weeks would be perfect for me because I was young and mostly healthy and I'd worked with you guys for a year and a half. And so when I was coming into my 3rd week and they suggested I stay longer, I was like, okay, I wish I had known that 3 weeks is where you start and that they frequently will suggest that you stay another 1 to 3 weeks. So a lot of their success stories, if you really listened through them, those patients were there for 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, and left cancer-free in a way that they're maintaining in their life now of vigilance, not that they go back to eating the standard American diet and living a crazy, stressful life. Like that's not what they're expecting. They're expecting you make changes, but to be cancer-free in that context, most of them had stayed 6 to 8 weeks.
To really allow their therapies to make the maximum difference available to them. That's understandable.
So my primary doctor said that their goal is to see a 45 to 60% success in 3 weeks, which I did experience, I believe. And then they send you home with a home program, which I have decided and embraced doing. But I think that there could be a mistake or an illusion that 3 weeks and you're cured. And that's not what they're saying, but not always is it clear that they may be saying stay longer either.
Well, that's really good
I
to
would
know.
clarify that.
Yep, that's great to know. Can you talk a little bit about the recommendations that they had for you going home and how they would like to see you maintain that and then what you're choosing to do?
Sure. They have some nutrition guidelines. They're very similar to what I've been doing with Dr. Connors. Sugar-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, plant-based, some good animal proteins like fish and chicken and turkey and eggs, They ask me to avoid red meats and peanuts because of their mold content. And then to focus on good fats. So it's a very similar diet to what I've been doing for the last 2 years. And that is strongly emphasized in my discharge planning to go home. The other thing that's part of their recommendation for me, I've been a midwife and have worked nights and been on call and have maintained that most of the time that I've had the cancer. And they suggested that I take a year off, of call and that I take a year off of being up at night. And I have decided to take that advice. So that is not an easy one for me, but I think it's wise. And then they have sent me home with some supplements, B17, selenomycin, which targets the stem cells, high doses of oral vitamin C, with a suggestion to also find some vitamin C infusion resources in my area, which I do have. And there are a couple others, one in particular, I don't really know the English equivalent to yet. That's a piece of information I'm still researching. And then, like, they've encouraged me to continue a lot of the regimen that I have been on with Dr. Connors also. They saw the benefits of, like, hormone balance support and the curcumin with inflammation support. So they didn't disregard what I've already been on and what has been working for me. They've added to it. And this is their home program. They did tailor it to me. There were like 10 supplements on the list, and he said, here are the 5 I really, really want to see you do. And then I have 2 machines that were recommended for me. One is EEMF mat, that's also far infrared heat therapy. And the other one is the Magray lamp, which is like a heat lamp with a mineral plate in it that uses far infrared, and that does local hyperthermia. So I need to use both for an hour a day. That takes a bit of time to juggle that, but it's worth it to me.
And you did choose to pick up both of those, is that correct?
Yes, they were recommended to me, and I have chosen to do both of those.
Okay.
Other patients, based on their current healing, where their tumors are, what else is going on, have different suggestions for supplements and for the equipment. So that was mine.
Okay. Given your experience in Mexico, and not because they're not apples to apples, but comparing that to a loose degree to your experience with alternative medicine in the United States, is there anything that you think would be beneficial to alternative practitioners or alternative clinics here in the US that they could maybe consider bringing in or changing that would add to their value here that you experienced in Mexico?
So part of the answer to that question may be just that some things that they can do in Mexico we can't do here.
True.
So I got B17 every single day while I was there, IV. It's basically like getting a natural chemotherapy. So for 4 weeks, I was getting that 6 days a week. I don't think anybody here in the States can swing that. So maybe the only thing I would say that would benefit U.S. alternative care providers is just to know that there is a wonderful resource in Mexico because they can do things we can't. And to honor them as equals and to honor them as neighbors, and to be okay that some patients need to go get care there for periods of time because we just can't do it here in the States at this moment. And so maybe just saying to somebody who maybe has hit a wall and just isn't getting past a point in their healing, to just say, there are some options that we can't do here that maybe you could find really beneficial to you by going 10 miles south of the border and finding some well-trained medical doctors who have put together a very simple but effective clinic and protocol plan.
Christina, that was perfectly said. Thank you so, so much for answering my questions. Is there anything else that you would like to share with individuals who are watching this?
I guess I would just say that I went to Immunity Therapy Center, so I may be a little bit biased here, but there are other centers that are down there, and I know from different testimonies and talking to people who went to them that they've had excellent experiences. but Immunity Therapy Center offers the most variety of treatments, and they're very reasonably priced. Alternative care costs money. We can't get away from that. But they're not a resort, so you're not paying for the resort-like atmosphere, and they're not so inexpensive that they're not providing quality care. And I just found that they were kind of middle of the road and offered an excellent plan of care for anyone in any stage of their cancer healing or cancer diagnosis, or being told, sorry, go home and be on hospice. They were welcoming to all of us, and they offer a lot of options for treatment. And I would say that they're superior because I went there, but just by looking at other centers, I would just say give them a really serious consideration if you're looking to go to Mexico. And Mexico is fun, by the way. The culture, the driving, the ocean, you know, it's a busy, bustling city, Tijuana is, but it was kind of a delight to be there too.
Well, and being from the Northern Hemisphere, you probably appreciated enjoying some of the warmth while everybody else was getting colder and colder and colder in New York. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, and I'm sure it will bless many people who are wanting to consider those options. So thank you for being on the call, Christine. It was good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you too. Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome.